This is Dan Henk, and welcome to another edition of the Skull Session podcast. And today, my guest is Mark Richard. Is it how to pronounce your name?
Mark Richards. Yep.
I was close. I was close.
Almost.
All right,
Multiple Richards.
Mark. So let's talk a little bit about your career, what led you up to this point, and what you got going on.
Sure. I've just always been drawing for as long as I can remember, and art was really the only thing that I really wanted to ever put much effort into, aside from maybe like music. But that falls under the same umbrella. And so for the longest time, my main goal was to just be an illustrator, and got to a point in my like mid to late 30s when I could finally go full time with it. And Mark Blanchard and I had talked about a tattoo apprenticeship a handful of years ago. I honestly had never wanted to become a tattooer, but with him, it made sense because he was the only guy doing like really gnarly dark artwork. So
Right.
it made sense to learn how to tattoo from someone who would actually want to like help me turn my style of, heavy metal horror stuff into suitable tattoo work. I started that apprenticeship when I moved home from California back in it's like late 2019, and started tattooing like right before the pandemic. I think I got about a month in and then everything shut down. Uh, and then once we got back up and running later that summer in 2020, we decided we were going to open up Tomb. So within a few months, we found a spot in Salem, Massachusetts, and set up shop. So we've just been focusing on that for a handful of years, and I just get to make gnarly art every day. It's pretty awesome.
Awesome. So was there a pause with the lockdowns? Like I know everyone was different. Like for us, it was only I think it was like about a year. Although we were sneaking people in.
Yeah, we got lucky. Everything shut down in like early to mid March here in Massachusetts, and we were able to start getting back into tattooing sometime in July. But obviously everybody had to be wearing masks and all that
Right.
stuff. Tattooing paused for me, but since I always have 8 million projects going on, I was able to do a crap load of illustration, wrote a lot of music, and got to cook a lot. So it was honestly, despite all of the death and sickness and everything, it was like the best 3 or 4 months of my life because
Wow.
I just got to sit and draw all day.
Do you get paid for drawing? Like do people hire you to do illustrations for stuff?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I've been
what do they hire you for?
for the most part, like I started with logos, and then it shifted to like t-shirt designs and flyers, posters, eventually to album covers and backdrops. And then I started doing work for there's this company out in LA called Hero Complex Gallery, and they do like Mondo style alternative posters for movies.
Oh,
So I
cool. Yeah.
started doing, yeah, so I started
We have
doing.
that in our shop. Like the whole we're on the second floor, so the whole stairway up is like all framed like alternative movie posters,
Oh
like
yeah,
Terminator and The Fly and stuff like that.
yeah,
But they're all like they're obviously hand drawn by somebody and they come out in limited edition or whatever. But go ahead,
yeah.
sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, so I got linked up with those guys when I moved out to California. Um, but yeah, I mean, anything that anybody wants to hire me for illustration, I've always been willing to listen. But for the most part, just like merchandise, flyers, posters, album covers. But yeah, I've been getting paid to do that stuff for more than half my life at this point because I've always been into music. So starting to play for bands or in bands, and then doing my own artwork, and then friends' bands would hire me. It was kind of just like a really easy snowball effect from the time when I was like maybe 16 or 17 to now in my 40s that I still get to make gross logos and shit for bands that I listen to. So it's pretty cool.
Have you had a problem with like I remember I did a bunch of art for bands like when I initially moved to New York I wanted to be a comic artist and
Hmm.
then that's right when the comic industry almost went bankrupt so
Yeah.
like I was having a real hard time with that. I talked to Penguin Books they pay a lot for a book cover but you get like maybe two a year
Yeah,
So at first you're like, wow, it's like 6 to 8 grand, and like this is back in '98 when
yeah,
there's a lot more
a lot of
money.
money.
But I was like, oh wow, that's good money. But yeah, you get like two a year, maybe. You can't live off that. So I remember I started doing a lot of band album covers, and some bands like Coalesce, I did their album cover, and they
Yeah,
paid me right off. Like Sean Negron was a really stand up guy, but a lot of bands, it's not even their fault because they're kids. But
yeah,
they get the advance, and then they talk up all this great album cover art that you're gonna do. So you start doing it, and you go, "Hey man, can I get paid for some of this? I got to pay my rent." And they go, "Oh, check the label," and you talk to the label, and the label's like, "Oh, we give them an advance. Part of that is for the album cover art." So
yeah,
talk to the band, and they talk to the band. They go, "Oh, we didn't know that. We blew that money."
yeah.
So I'm wondering if you had a similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it does come with the territory, especially at this point. I've probably worked with like somewhere between 400 and 500 unique clients. But the good thing is that there's probably only been maybe like a dozen of them, maybe a little bit more that have been problematic. I'm always a stickler for getting a deposit, so that way
Yeah, I
it's,
started
you
doing
know,
that.
yeah,
That's how you get paid.
yeah. And like every now and then I'll forget because I'll just be, in the thick of things. And then it's like that one time that I forget is when I get hosed. I
Of
won't name
course,
names just because, I don't want to open up any cans of worms.
right,
But there's been a couple people I've had to kind of like not call out publicly to be like, yo, where's my money? But more just like, I want to show off this work that I did
right,
for, a band or an outlet that I enjoy. And like, I don't care about the money anymore. I just want to be able to show it off.
right.
So there's been a few times where I've gotten stiffed, but for the most part, like just as long as it's not a logo or something that's specific for some band or brand, it's really easy for me to just post and be like, hey, I got this thing that someone ditched out on, I'm asking X amount, and then within 17-20 minutes, I'd get, someone hit me up. So it's been very rare for me to get stiffed. Um, but it's just because I cover my bases and I try to just like always make sure to talk to people and make sure that the expectations are clear across the board so that way there's no confusion. And like if they say, oh yeah, we'll get the deposit to you in like a week, I'm most likely not getting that deposit, so I move on and
Right.
I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things that you got to keep an eye on because it's never going to stop, you know.
It's what I've gotten to is I'm like, I don't even start the drawing until I get the deposit. And I'll tell people that I'm like, give me a deposit and then I'll start drawing.
Yep.
You know,
Same with tattooing. It's like unless you're going to give me a deposit, I'm not doing anything.
exactly. Yeah.
It's like
And like,
I could be putting that time and energy into something completely different,
yeah.
you know.
Well, I remember like especially the early tattooing when like we didn't have like an iPad or anything like that. So like if I did I did one where I did kind of a Nosferatu vampire. So
Mhm.
I had pictures taken of myself, you know, in that pose, and then I drew myself up as a Nosferatu vampire. But I would do stuff like that all the time. Like I
Yeah,
did like
same.
Medusa, and I had my wife at the time, Monica, she like posed like Medusa, and so I took like Polaroids of her, and then I drew it up. But the couple of times where people told me this awesome concept they wanted, and I spent all this time drawing it up, I showed them the drawing, and they're like, "Oh man, that's cool. Can I take it home and think about it?" The few times where I did that, never saw them again.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and there's been numerous times I've dealt with clients that will say like this is exactly what we want, and it's a very, thought out visual representation or and like a text representation of what they're thinking of. And then I'll draw out pretty much exactly what they ask for, and then they're like, no, that isn't it. And it's like, well, you don't know how to use words then. So usually at that
Yeah,
point, it's like, all right, when you understand how to speak what you want, get back to me because I'm not going to guess, and I'm not going to like you said, having to take Polaroids and pictures and actually make your own photo reference and everything. Like with an iPad, you can download an app for free or $5 or $6, and you can pose hands and skulls and people and objects, and you have new reference within moments. But like, yeah, if you're working on a sketch based on photo reference that you've taken, and now you have to take new stuff, it's just like a whole extra nuisance that you don't really have to deal with that much these days.
yeah, definitely. So you're saying like if you do an illustration and like somebody kind of like backs out, but it's like it's not tied to some specific product or band or you know anything like the delineates is just that.
Yeah.
You're saying you can take and use it somewhere else?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, everything that I draw for the most part is something that I like or is at least like a challenge. So yeah, like I think there's maybe been one or two illustrations that I've done that I either couldn't use because the client changed their mind or they just disappeared. Uh, but like, sometimes there'll be a thing where like at the beginning of the pandemic, before things were shut down, I was working on like a poster for Pig Destroyer. And
Okay.
I've done more work for them in agoraphobic nosebleed than any other client. So there's like a really good working relationship where, we can like if when so th this was when Blake Harrison was in the band, who unfortunately just passed. But he had hit me up about this poster, so I did it, and I was like 90% done, and then COVID shut everything down. And he's like, "Hey, we're not going to be going on tour, obviously. Like, do you want us to pay you for this?" Like, and I was like, "No, if you don't want to, it's fine because we've done like 1,000 projects together, and I can put it up online and sell it to somebody within minutes, just so like they didn't have to worry about the financial burden." So I posted it, and then Wake Brewing, I think they're out in Illinois or Iowa. They picked that up in like 15 or 20 minutes. So it's like if I get stiffed or if there's something that like, shifts gears in the middle of a project, I don't really have to worry about it because people are pretty much always looking for pre-made designs in one form or another. So it's good. One hand washes the other.
Yeah, no, a lot of like the paintings and drawings I've done, like if they're not tied to something specific, I've like, I'll do them for one thing. Maybe if that didn't pan out, I'll bring in something else. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I remember there was one band. I'm not gonna mention the name. There's one band. I did two oil paintings, a watercolor painting, and drawings for, and they kept like not changing their mind, but like altering like little specifics or like like can you turn the head this much? I'm like, it's an oil
Yeah.
painting. It's not
Yeah. It's not a
Photoshop.
physical object you can turn.
Yeah.
I've gotten that a lot. It's a pain in the butt.
And then I remember they went on tour and another band went on tour with them and I'm friends with that band and one of the members of the band is like, "Oh, I love that hoodie you did from." I'm like, "What hoodie?" Well,
Oh,
one of
they
the
used it
paintings
anyway.
I did for the album cover, they instead used a hoodie. It didn't even bother to tell me.
Yeah. It happens a lot because like people think that just because the artwork has been made for them, they can do whatever they want with it. And it's like it's very tough as an artist to like try to confront someone or say, hey, it's like this project was supposed to be this, and now that it's this, it's like things are different. And it would have been fine if you just said, "Hey, can we use this as a hoodie or a t-shirt or whatever?"
Yeah,
You
I,
know?
I would have been cool with it. I'd have been like, "Yeah, yeah, man, that's cool." But
Yeah.
tell me, how about
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Hey, give me a copy." That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can be like, "Hey, check this band out on tour and make sure to pick up a hoodie. I drew it." You know?
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Like that's one of the things that I care about the most these days, especially with it. Like, social media is just a shell of what it used to be. It used to do everyone a lot of favors, and now it's like the way that algorithms work, everything gets buried. So people like tagging and sharing, like, "Hey, here's the artist who did this," goes a long way now as it did back
Yeah.
then. So yeah, to like have the wool pull over your eyes and not know what's
You
happened to
know
your
what I
art.
think it is? I think you're not wearing the pink tutu and dancing on TikTok.
Yeah,
That would make
that's
the
not gonna happen.
difference.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
until they ban it, they might ban it next week.
That's what I've heard. Yeah,
Yeah.
I barely use it. I kind of just exist in the real world at this point.
So at this point, do you do more tattooing or do more illustration? How do you break it up?
Yeah, I mean, since I've only been tattooing for like 3.5 years now, that's been the main focus. It definitely presented itself as a much more viable outlet for my art as a career. But now that I've kind of like settled into tattooing and been, doing all sorts of guest spots and conventions and building up a lot of clientele, it hurts my body a lot. So now I've been like
Well,
trying to,
I stretch a lot. Everyone that
yeah,
I know complains about how their back hurts. It's like, well, I stretch all the time. I mean, maybe it's because I do like jiu-jitsu and taekwondo and Muay Thai,
yeah,
but I just naturally stretch, and I've never had back issues.
that's good. And I'm like naturally shaped like a croissant, so I have to start doing some yoga. But yeah, so I've been trying to like find the balance between tattoos and illustration. And I know with your interview with Blanchard, you guys touched upon like the special effects makeup and prop making and everything. So that's something that I'm gonna start getting into with him and our friend Missy very soon, so I can help on whatever projects they need. So at this point, it's gonna be kind of like separating my time between tattooing, illustration, and whatever I'm gonna be doing with like the special effects stuff. But I would say like in the long run, I really want illustration to become like the longevity career. Now that I kind of took maybe like 2 years off of taking commissions, and it was essentially like starving the vultures. So now that I'm getting back into it, people are willing to pay me what I want. They're willing to listen to my ideas. They're willing to listen to, anything that I have to say that will lead to better success for me and the client. Because at this point, the proof is in the pudding. Like I've been doing art for other people for more than half my life, getting paid for it. So at this point, like I like to consider myself.
Also, you don't need it to pay the rent.
No, yeah, and that's like what kind
I
of
think
makes
that
it
makes a
better.
huge difference.
Yeah,
'Cause,
so that way when I'm
like,
like,
go ahead.
so it's like, if someone presents a project to me and they're like, hey, we're gonna nitpick everything you do and give you $500. I'm not taking that. Or,
Exactly. No, I've done almost the
I
exact
don't have
same
to.
thing. Like
Yeah, and
people
I'll tell
come to
them
me
like,
and I'm like, back in like my 20s when I needed the fucking money, I'd be
yeah,
like, okay, and I just put up with it. And I'm just like, all right, not for me. All right, sorry.
yeah,
Bye.
and like as soon as it starts getting to be stressful or like too much of a process and I'm not excited about it, I don't want to do it anymore. And
Right.
what's good is that the vast majority of people who have been coming to me with illustration projects lately are either longtime clients or clients that make sense, like whether they're in the metal world or horror, whatever it is. But yeah, it's really cool actually being shown my value for once.
Right.
And instead of people trying to like negotiate with me, they're like, okay, we can't afford that right now, but we will eventually. Or totally cool, let me know where to send it as a deposit. So it's really been nice to like merge back into the illustration. But I mean, tattooing definitely that's the full-time gig right now.
Right.
But yeah, it's just a balance between all the things I'm trying to do artistically.
Well, I found when I started tattooing, I was like, like initially I moved to New York City from Virginia to make it as a comic artist.
Mhm.
And then I was like, well, if I don't make it as a comic artist, because like you say, comics were doing really bad at that time, I was like book covers or band cover, album covers or whatever. And for this podcast, I've interviewed some like pretty famous comic artists. Like I don't know if you know Steve Bissett or Walter Simonson. But I've interviewed a bunch of people that are commercial illustrators, and they
Mhm.
don't make that much money. And
Yeah.
because Marvel and DC keeps all the rights, and then they retire being these legendary illustrators, and then they have to teach at art school just to pay the rent.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the first 2.5 years that I was full time with art was just illustration. And it was like impossible trying to make like a decent living wage. I was selling pretty much everything I owned and just having to take multiple projects on where, I would say, hey, ideally I would charge 1,000 for this. And then people are like, well,
Right.
we have 600. I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to go back to dispatching trains for Amtrak because that's what I did for like 8.5 years while building up a better portfolio with my illustration. Um, so I was just like, all right, I guess I'll just take it and suck it up. And then,
Here I worked at a Hard Rock Cafe. It sucks.
yeah, that's a bummer, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, now it's like it's very hard as an artist to know what your value is and like I guess know or guess if other people are going to value you the same way. Um, but yeah, it's like I feel like artists just get take advantage of as much as possible because it's not a real job. But
Right.
it's like shit that makes the world better. It's like you
Or
wouldn't.
people think that you do it like that. They think it's
Yeah,
nothing.
it's a curse. Like every day I wake up already just like trying to think like how am I going to make this tattoo better? How am I going to make this illustration better? Am I going to be able to, you know, uh pay the bills that I want to with this? Is this person going to cancel on me? Are they going to disappear? So it's just like, you're not just showing up to a 9 to 5 job, you're like living it every day. And to like not be able to pay your way through life with money for like, the thing that is your purpose is like just depressing as hell.
Right.
So it's really good to get to that point now where like I'm actually seeing a lot of illustrators turn into tattooers and they're not able to take on as many illustration clients. So now I feel like illustrators are starting to have the upper hand again. And because like if all of us are doing other things and we can't do your illustration projects, like who are you going to go to? Not that there's like there's 8 million people you could go to, but they don't want to go to other people.
Right. Well, it's weird too because it's like you get that one thing on Pinterest and suddenly everybody's like, "Dude, that's the guy to go to," and
Yeah.
like you're like, "Dude, I've been doing good work all along," and all of a sudden I'm on
Yeah.
Pinterest and then everybody wants me. Like
Yep.
I remember I did one space leave, and then for like the next 5 years, I was a space guy. But
Yeah.
it's like I was just trucking along, and then the space leave I did, somebody posted on Pinterest, and then like at the time it was in Paul Acker shop Deep Six, and it was
Hmm.
just like nonstop. Like they even made
Yeah.
a joke. There's on the counter when they have days off. They say Dan went back to his home planet, and they draw a little flying saucer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, luckily I've just been doing skulls and roadkill, so everyone knows me for dead stuff. So no one really comes to me for anything else except for like, skulls, Lovecraftian creatures, got a
That's
lot of
awesome. Yeah,
Bloodborne, Dark Souls type stuff. So,
I'd
but yeah,
Mark tattoo some of that on me. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's in our world, so it's like all we do. But yeah, I mean, just at that Detroit convention, I saw you working on that space sleeve that you've been working on for years. So
Yeah, yeah. And I like the illustrations are kind of hit or miss, but like because I've been able to kind of weed out because I, pay the rent doing tattoos and owning a tattoo shop, I'm like,
yep,
you know, if I don't like it, and I say I don't want to do it, and it's weird because a lot of people, a lot of clients are like, oh wow, I don't have that say so, I don't have that iron grip over him. So like, okay, all right, whatever you think is best.
yeah,
Like I've noticed that difference like
yeah,
between trying to get paid and okay, what do you want? I'll change anything for you
yeah.
to yeah, man. All right, sorry, I'm out.
Yeah, there's several tattoo projects that I've taken on because I felt like, all right, I'm still new to this and I should challenge myself with these things. And then as I'm doing them, I'm realizing like I'm never going to post this because I don't want people to come to me for this stuff because it's like just not what I want to do, you know?
I don't know if it's a little bit off the topic, but I don't know if it's if you have the same feeling you might. But like when I do like a painting or a drawing or a tattoo, and it's like initially I thought it's gonna be awesome, and then
Yeah.
I get about 2/3 of the way into it, I'm like, it's not coming out how the way I envisioned it.
Yeah.
Then I get depressed.
Yeah. It's pretty much every single thing that I do, I'll have a vision in my head. It's like it just gets to a point where I've kind of just had to think like, all right, I know the subject matter is cool. So I'll just wing it. Like I try to push a lot of my clients to just let me do my thing and draw on them. Just like especially if it's going to be some like amorphous creature or a bug or a skull
Oh,
or something.
that's the best when people like try and put like too many, things in the
Yeah,
pot. You're like, dude, stop. You
yeah,
came to
it's
me
like
because you like my stuff.
just let me draw a creature on you, and you'll see it. Like it's going to be cool. But yeah, like I was just working on a poster, and the initial idea I had, I was like, this is going to be the sickest thing ever. I'm going to have all these like cool Easter eggs. And then as I was putting together just like the references, I was like, this isn't going to look anything the way that I intended, but like whatever, it's another day at the office. I gotta make sure I get it done. But yeah, like it's a plague to like have that vision, but not be able to completely translate it, whether it's because like you can't figure out the tools you're using, or like especially with tattooing, like people's skin just will not want to cooperate.
Oh
Certain
yeah, yeah.
we'll be fine one day, and
I
like,
just had that happen. You know, I was complaining to you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's but it's like, yeah, it's an everyday thing, and some days you're sitting on top of the world, and others you just want to fucking die because you just can't get that line in the way that you want, you know?
Well, I've also noticed like there's some illustration projects I've taken on where like the overall concept was cool and they want like 15 or 20 illustrations. And like I would say like probably like if it's like 15, 12 of them were awesome. And then
Yeah,
three, I was like, okay, and I'm trying to make them cool, but it's like I just don't feel like I can capture what would make them cool.
yeah,
But I have to do it because I took the whole package on.
yeah,
Does it
and you have
happen to
a
you?
yeah, oh yeah, all the time. Um, it's like sometimes, like just thinking back to like general problems with illustration commissions with album art. Everyone thinks like, all right, this is our album art. So it needs to be fucking epic. It needs to be this big
Right.
scene with 8 million characters. And it's like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to draw 8 million corpses. Like, I probably have drawn 8 million corpses, but like, I don't want to shove them all into one thing that's going to, like, most people are going to see it on Bandcamp this big.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
I like how people have like a ton of fucking ideas. You're like, we got to kind of weed it out to make a strong image off of it.
yeah, yeah,
Like whether it's like illustrations or tattoos, whatever they want to throw everything in the kitchen sink in there. You're like, dude, that does not look good. They're like,
yeah,
trust me on this. It does not look good.
yeah. They want like, a color palette of like 15 different colors. And like, I'm not going to paint a rainbow for you because it's like it's going to take away from the dark, sinister nature of this piece.
Well, and
You
what it
know?
describes this, it's like a Where's Waldo?
Yeah,
It's like there you don't see the image because it's all too confusing.
yeah. Like some people really like that. I like it to a certain extent, but like if there's not going to be that focal point and like a good composition and implied line and contrast between the elements, so you can, like, even if you have to look at it for like 5 to 10 seconds to figure out what's going on, that's fine. But yeah, for you to do like a Where's Waldo with an album cover or something, you're not really going to remember anything except for like, oh yeah, that's that super busy art that, it's not going to leave a
Well,
lasting
I've
impression.
learned like I talked to some people because they've been doing like more horror book covers and stuff. And I remember I was talking to Lynn Henson who does a lot of that stuff. And some guy hit me up to do a cover, and like he left me like this paragraph of like all this like crazy stuff we want to include. And I was like, "Hey, Lynn, what do you think of this?" She's like, "I would run screaming. I would do
Yeah,
it."
yeah, it's too much.
Yeah. But all right, man. So unfortunately I gotta wrap this up, pretty soon. I gotta go. How can people get a hold of you and see your stuff and give you money and hire you to do cool projects?
I accept money via every pay app possible. I will take cash if you want to stop by the shop. My Instagram is heavy.hand. My email is not so heavyhand at gmail.com because fortunately I came up with heavy hand illustration years before I ever thought that I would become a tattooer. And
Right.
since I built up that brand and moniker, I couldn't really change it. But yeah, I would say Instagram is like the main hub for everything. That's where you can see the most of my stuff. And it's got, links to all the things you would need, whether it's the shop or me and Mark's bands. But yeah, Instagram, heavy.hand is my tag on there.
Okay, and do you have a website?
Yeah, I have right now pretty much the only thing that's put up is my web store, which is shopheavyhand.com. Uh
Okay.
and that's just got like a bunch of various t-shirts, posters, a crap load of stickers, sweatpants, you name it. During the pandemic, I like beefed up the uh the website big time with all sorts of stuff because people were just lounging around. So I got joggers, shorts, leggings, all sorts of stuff.
Okay,
Fanny pack.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing like some guy had a hold of me is like oh, I'm a big fan, blah blah blah, which was awesome. And he's like, I'm putting on like a horror tattoo convention, and we also have people coming to do FX and like we'll have contests, and he got a good friend of mine, Ricky, to judge it, and they can have some like B horror movie celebrities. So I
Nice.
brought up to Mark, and Mark was interested. So I hope I'll see you there.
Is that the one in Atlanta?
No, no, it's not the one in Atlanta. This one's in
Okay.
upstate New York. It's in Schenectady. Is that how you say it? New York.
Schenectady, I believe.
Schenectady, yeah.
Yeah. When is that? Do you know?
Um, I think it's around I think it's around Halloween, but it's like
All right.
September or whatever.
If it's in
September or
September, we
October.
might, yeah, we might be able to do it. But in October, we set up a storefront at the shop and we're open every day, and it's just chaos every single day. So trying to get out of Salem during Halloween season is like trying to escape prison. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, there's always the potential that we can have coverage at the shop, so we can go do other
I
stuff. But
definitely have to stop by your shop at some point 'cause it looks awesome. I want to check it out.
yeah, it's only gonna get better.
Okay, awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this. Do you
No
have
problem.
anything else you want to throw out there?
I don't know. Thanks for having me, and I don't know, just check out Tomb Gallery. That's our Instagram is just at Tomb Gallery. That's where we're gonna have all sorts of new projects and merchandise coming out this year. Mark and I are really excited with all the projects we got going on individually and collaboratively. So yeah, we're just keep an eye on the social media as much as you can, and you get to see all sorts of wacky stuff we get to do.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I see those guys at conventions all the time. They have lots of cool merchandise, so everyone
So
should check it out.
thank you
All
very
right, Mark.
much.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.